My name is Billy Ann Wu. I'm the board president and chair of the Roedde House Preservation Society. The Roedde House Museum is located on the ancestral and unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish people. We honor and respect the people who have been custodians and caretakers of this land long before settlement. This video and Family Day activity is made possible by the generous grant from the province of BC. Thank you so much for that. The Roedde House Museum, as a short introduction, was opened to the public in 1990. The Roeddes lived here from 1893 to 1925. This house was built, as mentioned, in 1893, and it contained this beautiful room here that we are sitting in. This room was Matilda's room. Matilda was the mother of the family, and she used this room as a sewing space. And so she would be able to sit here, do her mending and her darning, and sewing, of course, while being able to watch over the neighborhood as it developed around her. Welcome to our 2022 Family Day activity. I'm pleased to welcome Amy Walker, who will be showing you how to get started on your sewing and hand stitching journey. Today you'll be learning how to make a pincushion and do some basic mending. Have fun!
Hello, I'm Amy Walker, and I'm very pleased to be here at the Roedde House Museum and to be sharing some sewing kits and sewing tips with you for Family Day today. We have a little kit here that we provided, and inside there are pins, needles, and a variety of threads, plus a little how-to book, and all the parts that you're going to need to make a pincushion. Here's the pincushion that we're going to be making. I've got a finished pincushion to show you here, so you can see it's like a cylinder and it's round, so it's 2 circles and a straight piece of fabric. There we go. That's what we'll be sewing together. There's a little bit of cardboard just to hold the bottom solid so that the pins don't go through and poke you in the finger. It's not very nice. So to start off with this pincushion, we're going to take the long piece and we're going to sew that into a loop. And once that's a loop, then we can add on the bottom and then the top. So to start off, we're going to take the thin thread, and I'm using red color to sort of match up with that pinkish fabric. This is a handmade felt, so it's made with merino wool and then silk, and so it's a nice natural material to do some sewing with. I like to use natural materials, just these in this day and age. It's good to use things that aren't necessarily plastic. Okay, so now we're getting ready to thread our needle to sew the loop. And it's a very fine little thread, so I just pinch it in between my fingers and poke it through the hole in the needle. Should go through there. And now this one, we're going to double thread. So there's 2 layers of thread. It's called loving the thread. You just run your finger from the needle down to the tail, and that lines everything up so it's nice and smooth and it doesn't tangle as much. And then you tie a little knot, a little loop, and then pull that, and you can do that twice. So you've got a little knot at the end of that thread. And now we're going to line up the 2 edges of this fabric, and we're going to do a little back stitch, and the instructions for the back stitch is in the little booklet. And basically all that is that you're putting the right sides. This is the silk is the outside of the fabric and the wool is the inside of the fabric. So we're going to put the silk sides together, and then we're going to poke our needle in one end and back out the other, and we're going to do a little back stitch. So that's going to be about let's say a 1/4 of an inch from the edge and we're just gonna sew along, stitching and then going back to where our previous stitch was, so that we just sew this little strip of fabric into a loop. Okay, we can go right up over the edges, because those edges are going to form the sides of our pincushion. So we want those to be really tightly held together. And you can even sew your way back down the other side. It doesn't have to be pretty, this one. It just has to hold everything together. And then once you've gone all the way back and forward, we're going to tie another knot over here. Just make a loop with the thread, poke your needle through it, and then pull the loop all the way down to the fabric. And then put your finger on it and pull, and the knot should be right next to the fabric. That'll keep everything held tightly together. And once you're done with that, you can trim the little tails off. Boom. And you've got, and always remember to put your needles back into back somewhere where you know where to find them. Here's a little pin holder. Okay, now that we've got the loop, we're going to look at putting the bottom of the pincushion onto the loop. This is all pre-measured, so we've got the sizes, but this loop is the same measurement as the circumference of this circle. So we're going to take a piece of this embroidery thread, which is all measured out to the right length, but if you see, it's a bit longer than the span of my arms from fingertip to fingertip. And that's going to be enough to go all the way around both the top and the bottom. So this, again, we're going to pinch the embroidery thread. This is the thicker thread, and it's got a nice bright color. So this is going to show up. We're going to poke that through the needle and then pull it all out. And this time we're only going to single thread. We're not going to double thread. And we're not even going to tie a knot. So this embroidery thread is 6 strands of thin thread, and this is used to do embroidery and to make colorful, bright, fun details on things. What we're going to do is we're going to do a blanket stitch on the edge, which is going to show up really clearly, and I'm using a bright contrasting color so you can see it. So to get started, you have your single thread, no knot in your thread. The reason people don't use knots a lot of the time when they're doing embroidery is because the knot makes a little bump. And so we're going to avoid that by doing 3 stitches in one spot. And we're going to start just to the left-hand side of the loop. I'm just going through the felt. I'm not actually going through to the other side. I'm just getting a little tiny bit of that felt on top of the needle, and I'm going to leave a tiny little tail there, and I'm going to stitch exactly in the same place 3 times, and that's going to hold everything. Oops. Easier said than done. Sometimes it doesn't work how you thought it would work, and that's part of learning. So don't get frustrated. Just take a deep breath and keep trying. So there's 2 and 3 in the same spot, and then when you tug on it, it shouldn't go anywhere. So that's good enough. Yeah. Okay, so you've got your 3 stitches in one spot here, and now flip your loop inside out, and that top is going to go right there. Okay. And we're going to go through the outside of the loop over, down through the top, and we're gonna catch the loop, and this is called a blanket stitch. So basically every stitch we do is going to make a visible detail while it's holding the piece together. In a stitch. Now the reason people do this, it's called a blanket stitch, so it's helps keep the edge of the blanket from fraying. It also adds a decorative edge. So we're going to go all the way around the top with the same stitch, and sometimes it's easy to get a little spaced out and just forget which way you're going and do it the wrong direction. And if you after you've practiced a bit, you don't have that problem. But if you're new to this type of sewing, you might need to pay attention a little bit as you get started, because it can be a little bit confusing. But once you've practiced a little bit, it becomes really easy. So just if it's not going so well for you, maybe backtrack and take out your stitches if it's not working and start again. There's nothing wrong with starting fresh if it doesn't seem to be going your way, and just practice a few times and see if you can get that. And already we're starting to get what looks like the little design around the edge, and you can check and just see with your tension, is that going to make it all the way around? For mine, the loop is feeling a little bit bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be very careful about the tension that I'm putting on as I sew, because I want these to match up all the way around. So I'm going to put a little pin there, and I'm just going to, basically I'm going to match up these fabrics so that I don't have a big bunch at the end. We want them to perfectly match together. Okay, we're getting to the end of the first circle, which will be forming the bottom of our pincushion. I'm just taking these last few stitches and watching the spacing and the placement of those stitches, because I want them to end up as perfectly spaced as I can so that they fit all together around the circle in even spaces. And then this one, we're just going to poke that back into the pincushion and then go inside. Okay, go inside. There we go. And we're just going to feed this down inside the felt. Just run the needle inside the felt so it's kind of holding on to something, it's hiding in there. And then flip it over, and we'll have a chance to spread out these stitches at the very end and make them look all regular. But now we're going to take the green circle and put that'll be the top of the pincushion. And we're going to do exactly the same thing, where we just go out through the side and over the top. And then we'll just sew halfway around, and then we'll stuff the pincushion. Now we're ready to stuff the pincushion. So we've got halfway around the top. We're going to take this little piece of cardboard, and that's going to go inside the pincushion, and it's just going to hold so that the pins don't go all the way through and they don't poke your fingers. And then we've got some sheep's wool, nice and clean, and this is going to go inside, and it has a little bit of natural lanolin, so when you are putting pins in and out, it'll kind of keep your pins in good condition. And just stuff as much as you can fit in there. we want it to be nice and snug. We don't want it to be underfilled. We want it to be nice and plump, a good little stuffy of a pincushion. So that feels about right. It's going to have a nice sort of rounded over top, and then the bottom will be flat because it's got that cardboard in it. Okay, so then push that away from the edge, and we're just going to continue our stitch the same way until we get to the end here. So again, we're going through the side and up through the top, and we're going to grab the loop and pull it tight all the way around to the end. Okay, so we're coming up on the end of our stitches in the pincushion, and the trick here is to hide the final knot. So again, I'm just kind of spacing out, trying to put the stitches evenly spaced. And this last one, I'm going to go up through the first one like that, and I'm just going to sort of make that blend in. Oops, did the last stitch here. Now, the way that we started, where we did 3 stitches in the same spot, that's the same way we're going to end. So we're just going to stitch 3 times in one spot, the exact same place, and that's going to hold everything together. And then we're going to just slide the needle into the work and back out at a spot further away, and that's going to hide the tail. This is a nice little trick. So you don't want to see that tail waving around. So we just hide that within the pincushion. Watch out you don't cut your work, and just trim off the thread, and you're all done. Give it a nice little squish. You can use your needle to sort of pull out and even up your stitches all the way along. Just give it a nice uniform look, and then just gently kind of massage it so that the stuffing kind of evens out. And there you have your homemade pincushion. Boop. Okay, well, thank you for joining us. I hope you had fun making your pincushion. Just rewind and watch again if you didn't quite catch all the details. Thanks to Roedde House for inviting me to share some sewing. I hope you have a great family day, and bye-bye.